fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. Got Luke Simons, like diamonds. For all those commenters who don't like to like diamonds, it's coming back hard. Woo! Wait till you guys.
The more he'll do it. So
yeah, wait till you hear. I'm getting the thing. Simons Like Diamonds trademarked in 2021. A lot of big changes coming with Like Diamonds. Even for that one dude who said it makes his sphincters tighten up every time he hears it. So I appreciate that. I love that feedback. But we're talking today not about Simons Like Diamonds, not about sphincters, but talking about catching inshore slams, redfish, speckled trout, snook, flounder after a cold front. You can see I got my hoodie on here today. It's cold out. Cold front finally hit Florida. I think all of Florida, even the Keys, it's a little bit chilly here. So that begs the question, Luke. Do you keep fishing the same spots you did in the spring and the summer and the fall, or do you switch it up? I don't know the answer, but
it's very rare that one spot has fish in every season. There are some anomalies. There are some spots that just has like a lot of different types of structure and different depths and all that actually is good all year long, but it's rare. And so if you're fishing after a cold front, or like really fishing in the winter, the same spot as your summer spot, like if you go out in the wintertime, this was our mistake for many years, like to the point where neither of us really fished the wintertime. We just assumed the fish had lockjaw. That was like a term we use a lot. That is not part of my vocabulary anymore. We think, okay, we didn't catch the fish. We went to all of our best spots, right? That we caught fish during the summer. We go there in the winter, we wouldn't catch anything. And we think they have lockjaw. That was a term we use all the time. Oh yeah, the lockjaw, bite was real bad. The reality was we just weren't going to good spots. We weren't going to the right spot based on the conditions. And typically those summer spots are the redfish, snook, trout, even flounder, they'll push up a little bit shallower, and because there's a lot of food up there. We have a lot of shallow grass flats. A lot of the oyster bars holds a ton of food. And after these cold fronts, that shallow water is what gets impacted the most from the cold front, right? That cold front's pushing in cold air. That air is touching the surface of the water, and then the temperature is going down gradually. And so the first water column to get coldest fastest is that shallowest stuff, the top layer. And those fish, right, they're cold-blooded. So the only way to moderate their body temperature is to literally move somewhere else that is not as cold. And so knowing that, right, just that simple science, we know that after these cold fronts, the shallow water is not going to be very good. Those fish are going to push out in deeper water. And so you don't necessarily have to go to totally different spots. You just have to go to a spot, like if there's a big flat that you've pre-front that you've been catching a lot of fish, cold front comes, those fish generally won't travel 10 miles away. They'll just go off and find some warmer water, and it'll almost always be like a deeper trough or the outside edge of the flat, or maybe like a man-made channel that's near the flat, like residential canals. They're going to go up in there to escape the cold, and then as soon as it gets warm again, they'll shift back up on the flat. So it's not so much about you have to go, because again, we used to, before the boat, I was a kayak angler, doing a lot of fishing on the paddleboard. And it was rare that if I had some good fish, a good spot, and then a front comes in, I would still be able to find the fish because I didn't have to paddle 5 miles away. I would just have to paddle around to the outside ledges and then the nearby canals, and then eventually I'd find the fish because they're going to be there. They're not going very far.
So that's awesome intel. So let's just say right now it's really the first like major front, right? It went from 70 to 38, 40 in a lot of areas. That's a massive change in temperature. How far are these fish moving? Like what happens? Let's just say you happen to have the haul pass from months ago and this is your day to fish and that front comes through. What do you do that next day? What are you doing differently?
Well, I think it's easier to say what not to do.
Ooh.
So we'll start with that. What I would not do is throw a topwater plug early in the morning up on a shallow flat.
Yes.
Because that's the opposite.
I'm seeing people talking about that, like literally right now today, like, oh, I went topwater. I'm like, why would you throw a topwater?
The water is super cold. I went out there today because today it was like a 30% drop from the day before. Significant drop. That's a legit drop. It was actually cold here in Florida, and those fish knew it. So I went up on the flat where we were filming a pinfish trap video, and even the pinfish, right? So I was actually going up on the flat looking for pinfish. We were looking for anything, and nothing was up there. About 2 feet of water and shallower, nothing. No, I mean, those fish, again, they're cold. They're going to move.
Like as in void of life.
Yeah, it's basically void of life. So they're not idiots. If it's cold, if they're uncomfortable, they're not going to sit there and take it. They're going to start moving and trying to find some better water. Where they were is right on the edge of the flat. And so I was actually using a slam shady, and I was casting it around because I've never used the pinfish trap in this area. So I was just teaching the start to finish on just how to find pinfish. And the easy way to do it is start throwing a paddle tail, because pinfish absolutely dominate these things. They love them. And I caught a trout while doing it. And then right where I caught the trout, that's where the pinfish were too. You can feel this pinfish tapping.
So what depth?
It ended up being it's probably about 4 feet.
Okay.
So, they would probably prefer deeper, but that was literally the deepest that there was around that actually had structure. So that was the edge of the grass. There's a different side of that area that's going up against a canal that gets down to about 10 feet. There were probably more fish there, but there's a channel there, and boat traffic was going back and forth, and I didn't want to be filming and getting boat waked while doing that. So that they're probably going to be more of the fish in that deeper section. But again, they're going to go until they find at least a place that they can feel decently comfortable. And so that outside edge was at least holding some fish.
Yep. And speaking of boat traffic, you guys probably heard that we got the new Pathfinder, bad of the bone boat, Pathfinder 24 with the tower. We are going to get this wrapped with Salt Strong on the side, kind of like Peter Deek's Yellowfin that has the Salt Strong boat. And we're also having our lifers. We have a couple hundred now lifers over the years, all of their names on the boat. And one thing that we're going to start doing, it hasn't been wrapped yet. The guy who's wrapping it is a little bit behind. But once it's done, we will challenge you anytime that you see us out there, regardless if Tampa or St. Pete or Texas, we're going to be traveling. Come up to us. Actually, obviously, if we're in the middle of fishing a honey hole, try not to blow the spot out, but we would love for you guys to come up. And I think we agreed offline that we're going to just always have, 10, 15 packs of Slam Shady or decals or something we're going to give out.
Decals, yeah, whatever. So that we can't obviously promise the Slam Shady sometimes that they're just sold out and we literally don't even have any, but we'll at least have some decals, something fun.
Yeah, so we'd love to meet you and give you some cool stuff. Just, middle of COVID, you got COVID, don't be coughing on us, put your buff on. Anyway, I want to throw that out there. So that's helpful. So 2 feet of less, no life at all. This was right after a cold front. In your case here, the end of the flat was 4-ish, and you're starting to see some signs of life.
Yep.
Are you now focused more on docks? I know last winter we really killed it on some of those docks. Are you going to be focused on docks now? What other types of structure are you going to be looking for?
Well, docks are always my go-to. That's my backup where it's like there's just fishing dock pilings is as long as you're a good caster, dock pilings hold fish. It is because again, it's the perfect scenario for fish. It's hard structure. There's a lot of them, and the pilings go from deep to shallow. So that on times like during our winters, where there's periods of fluctuation of temperature fluctuations that happens pretty quick, a dock is perfect because they can go from deep to shallow or shallow to deep really fast while still being protected from the number one predator, dolphin. And so they can stay in those pilings, right? At no point they're more than 10 feet away from cover. That's perfect. So docks are always go-to. Docks are a really good thing to fish in the winter, particularly ones that hold bigger boats, because at the end it's going to be deep. If it's like 8-10 feet of water, and there's some structure on the bottom, at least at the shoreline, like seagrass, rocks, oysters, anything other than flat sand, then that's going to be a really good dock. So docks are my go-to, but really, again, after cold fronts, it's really about just finding some depth that has some sort of structure. Just anything, 4 feet or more, ideally 5 feet or more, that has anything other than sand. So if it has rocks, that's awesome. If it has oysters, that's awesome. If it has even seagrass, deeper seagrass for areas with clear water, we can get that grass in 5 feet or more. That's great. Just what you don't really want is just flat sand, because the ambush predators like redfish, sea trout, snook, flounder, they're not often going to hold on just flat sand with nothing else there.
Yep. I'm blanking on his name. It's Captain Mitch something in the Carolinas that we did a video with a while back. But I love his kind of 3 tips on docks. For those of you that either do fish docks or want to start doing more, it is, to Luke's point, it's always where we go. If we're in a new spot, or if it's just kind of like, man, nothing else is working, let's just go hit the docks. There's always bait around docks. We've been on a dock. There's usually predator fish down there. And this guy, Mitch, said he looks for 3 things. So he looks for the oldest dock, the ones that got tons of barnacles and woods falling down. He's like, it's just all this structure and crustaceans and stuff down there. Looks for the longest dock. To Luke's point, the longer the dock is, the more opportunities these fish are going to have to move up and down. And of course, if there's current wrapping around, there are a lot of times at that end of that longest dock might be one of the better spots. Not always, but he's like, that's something I always look for. If there's the longest dock, I'm going to spend the most time on that longest one, the oldest one. And then on the flip side, I like the dock. Sometimes they're a little bit more new, but that has all the lights. He's like, that's just like ringing the dinner bell. That guy or gal who's had all their little night green lights going all night long, and the night's shining right down, just bringing all the bait up the entire night for me. I'm going to be hitting that in the morning, because there's still going to be bait around and there's still going to be predator fish around. I thought those were 3 great tips on fishing the docks for reds and trout and flounder and snook.
Yep, and the more gnarly the pilings, right? The more oysters on it, or barnacles, whatever. That's generally going to be the best as well. But all those, and sometimes that people sink structure down below, like pilings. I've seen all
washing machines.
Yeah, water. I mean, you never know what's going to be, and those are obviously going to be the best, right? Because that's like literally like an actual reef system under there. You don't know which ones have it until you make a cast in there and you get snagged, which is frustrating. So if you're going to be doing this fishing, very, very important is to use weedless jigs or something weedless like these. Just paddle tails are hard to beat. Like the Slam Shady paddle tail is for wintertime fishing. This is my go-to. This is the 2.0 version. It's 3.5 inches, much smaller. Fall, I'm using the big bomber. But as soon as these cold fronts come in, I'm switching to the small. So like right now, I'm starting to make the switch. And if I'm fishing docks, I'm going to use the weedless jig head that has that metal weed guard. This is made by Mission Fishing. They're great jig heads. They have the weed guard, ice strike, Z-Man, the trout eyes. They have the same thing. They're excellent. So if you're not familiar with the dock line that you're throwing, if you're doing open hook jigs, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose a lot. So you miss a little bit of strikes. You do miss some strikes with the weedless jig heads, but in my opinion, it's well worth it because of how less often you're going to be getting stuck on the bottom.
Cool. So tip number 1 is don't fish the same spots. Fish are moving. They're going a little bit deeper, especially in the mornings after a front. But on the flip side, I saw someone on Facebook, said, "Oh, cold front, all the fish are moving way back in the creeks." Talk about that. That does happen, but it's not in a 12-hour period that all of a sudden the fish go from the passes and the inlets to all of a sudden these backcountry creeks, 20 miles inland.
So the backcountry creeks will get better, and not all the fish, just like not all the fish come out to the Gulf or the Atlantic during the summer. Definitely not all. I would say even fewer go way back in the creeks. A lot of them do stay in the big water, like meaning close to the passes and inlets. There are fish that stay there all year long. They'll migrate to spots that have that have protection from the cold, like we were talking about. Because all the backwater creeks and estuaries is really protection from the cold, because you get that muddy bottom and that darker water will generally attract more heat. But again, like last winter, right, Joe, like when we started doing those podcasts, when we started doing those, I think in January or February, whatever it was in the wintertime. And we were catching, like we caught that first one we did, we caught a bunch of snook, a bunch of trout, and we were, I don't know, half mile from the Gulf. Like it was really close, and there were fish out there the whole winter. I was fishing.
Could have swam there.
Could have swam there, yeah. And there's fish there, right? So you don't have to go. Obviously, it helps, and that's we give you. For insiders, you see the weekly game plan every Friday. We'll talk about the general trends on where the majority of fish are, but just like everything, there's you don't have to follow it. It'll just help increase the odds. So right now, fish are definitely moving. Right now, the time we're filming this, it's still too early to go way back in those backcountry creeks at this time. But I'd say pretty soon. I would say within a month or so, and every year's different. It really depends on how many fronts we get and how serious they are and how long they linger. But it's going to get better and better. And that's actually now one of my favorite times to fish, because once you know the general areas where most of the fish are, and then you know the types of spots they're going to be seeking for warmth, then it's like literally the closest thing you can ever have to fish in a barrel. Because you find a good spot, put yourself in the right area, find a good spot in that area, and the majority of fish are going to be really tight together. And once you find them, it's on. And it's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, for you insider members, we have a lot of on the water fishing tips and on the water of us going out and fishing new spots. A lot of content is going to be pushing out here. And two, Luke mentioned it, those weekly game plan videos. It was cool to see the survey. We did a survey with our 18,000 insider members now. If you're not one, go join us at saltstrong.com. We'd love to see you inside the private community. But we asked them, what were the three of the favorite things that they like? And we heard the on the water fishing tips, right, over and over again. People I love, because it's one thing to, watch someone like, let's just say a fishing TV show. We love them. We watch some of them ourselves, but they're just showing it's a highlight reel, right? It's like just watching the home runs from the game. You don't really learn all the intricacies of what really happened. Like, where did they launch? Where did they catch bait? What mistakes did they make? Where weren't the fish, right? You can learn, you mentioned earlier, let's talk about where the fish aren't going to be. You can learn so much of that. And so we show everything. We show the good, the bad, the ugly, all the on the water tips. But the other part where I was going with this is so many people mentioned that weekly game plan. I think the number one issue people have with just fishing in general and busy lives is time. And there's some people, we have some retired people like our dad. He can sit there and he can burn 4 hours in a day and watch all the videos that we put out for that week. Where some people listen, I only got 10 minutes and I want to know where I should be going this weekend or tomorrow or this afternoon. And so every single now, it's every Friday morning, sometimes even Thursday night, but every Friday morning latest, we're getting a video out 10 minutes or less. And it literally shows you what types of area to fish based on what's working everywhere from Texas to Florida to even up Virginia, New Jersey now. To me, that part is priceless. Like having a full-time guy that just hits you up real quick in 10 minutes, just says, hey, here's where we're seeing all this stuff. You want to be looking in this type of depth. You want to be fishing the docks right now. You want to be in wind protected areas, like literally telling you exactly what types of places to look for. And that was cool to hear all that feedback.
Yeah, it's important. Again, that's what would have saved us countless days of frustration when we were going back to our spots, our GPS spots, I should say. And because we caught a bunch of fish there, we caught 40 redfish there one day. And now we go there every single trip, no matter what the season is. If you're not fishing there the same season or they're even the same conditions as the time where you caught 40 redfish, and then odds are that's probably not going to catch you 40 redfish. And again, that was, I can't tell you how many days of frustration we had for that exact reason, is not factoring in where we're going to fish based on the specific conditions the given day that we're fishing.
Yep.
And because once you have that part of it down, then you can just go out and you can find an endless amount of spots that are good as long as you know how to put it together. And that's what those weekend game plans are all about.
Yep. And if you were like us, or if you are like we used to be, where you think fish have lockjaw and you kind of shut it down over December, January, February, even into March. Don't do it. Like, join the club, get in there. This is the one, might be one of the best times to go inshore fishing. I know there's some opportunities in spring and fall, even in summer, that are awesome. But in general, I'm talking about very few people at the ramps. So it's easier to launch a boat and get in and out quick, right? You don't see lines like you do in the summertime when everyone's out there with all their families and friends and kids and barbecuing. So you're going to have fewer people to compete with. And as Luke said, once you find them, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, once you find that school of fish, they're usually all hunkered in there together. And as long as you know how to position your boat or kayak correctly and approach them correctly without spooking them. I mean, that one time, I remember me, you, and CA and a couple camera guys, I mean, we just kept catching trout until we were tired. I mean, we even put the little tandem rig and catching two at a time. And they were literally all in this just one little hole. It's like, once you find them, and there wasn't a single boat out there, is the best news. So you're not getting disrupted by all the people on sea-doos and wave runners. You don't have airboats going by you and back in the mangroves. I mean, all that kind of nonsense stuff that so many of us kind of like, we get a little bit angry about, that happens in summer with just all the boaters. It's gone away. Of course, now bad news, some fish, it can be tougher to get them to bite. But that's why we got things like slam shading, or new power prawn Brazilian shrimp coming up, and new chum coming up. Got all kinds of cool stuff that we're working on just to make it easier for you. But ultimately, the Insider Club is what does that, and our whole goal is just to make it simpler for you, right? To save you time, to help you find that feeding zone, that 90-10 zone, faster than ever before. Dude, it's funny. I haven't even told you this, Luke. So I'm reading a new book. Check out the wear and tear on that bad boy. Can you see the cover?
I think it's been through a lot.
Yeah, it's been through a lot. It's called Saltwater Strategies: How, When, and Where to Fish the Western Gulf Coast. I'm trying to, read as many books as Luke just put out, Redfish Secrets. And so this was one that someone recommended that I hadn't read, and it's more Texas fishing, but some cool stuff in here. The dude literally, and let me figure out what year this was written. I don't know if you guys know him, Larry Bosca. Larry's probably like, oh, come on, you guys are messing up my name. I know Larry's a big deal in Texas, Louisiana. What year was this thing? It's so
there's a wealth of information in these books too. It's
but my point, the dude literally mentions the 90-10. He actually says the first thing you do when you go to a spot, whether you're waiting or in a skiff, is you eliminate the dead zones. He literally says it word for word. Is like, you eliminate every area fish aren't going to be. He's like, that has been one of the biggest secrets. And I thought that was so cool that we aren't the only people talking about this. Even Larry, this book's so old, doesn't even say what year it was written. Anyway, thank you, Larry. Great book. I'm loving it so far. About halfway done. That was cool to hear.
Yeah, and so I think before we end, let's we really need to talk about the lures to use too, and or the baits, right? Whatever. So after the cold fronts, it's generally it's going to be in the wintertime, or at least close to the winter, and the bait's a little bit harder to get. And I personally, I prefer artificial lures, and as long as you match the lure to the conditions, they can do just as good as live bait, in my opinion, particularly if you're covering a lot of water. And so the lures to use after these cold fronts is something relatively small, something that is on the bottom, and I would call it low and slow. So get a small bait, like a jig is really hard to beat. You're bouncing on the bottom, get it right on the bottom, and just bounce it slowly. So again, like this paddle tail has been excellent. Just literally bounce it, pull it up, single or double twitch, and let it sit on the bottom. Do it again.
And you're going a little bit heavier on the jig head to make sure you're on the bottom?
Well, it all depends on the depth. So knowing that after cold fronts, I'm not using a weighted hook, because that's for the shallow water. We've already ruled that out, right? We're not allowing ourselves to go up shallow, at least in the morning after a cold front. So we're going deep, at least a 1/4 ounce jig head, if not more. If I'm fishing a 5-foot dock, 1/4 ounce jig head works. If I'm fishing deeper than 5 feet, then I'll go up to a 3/16 or just a high, higher than a 1/4, up to a half.
3/8.
Yeah, 3/8. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was told there's going to be no fractions here today.
That's way too much. I don't have my calculator, but I'm pretty sure 3/8 is the right one. But either way, just match the jig head to the depth you're fishing. And obviously, the more current you're fishing, you're going to need a little bit more weight to get it down. So just have something that's small, that's bounced on the bottom. Jig heads work awesome. I've really been using these are the shrimp lures we've been testing out. This is the small version of it. And this has been awesome. It's actually becoming one of my favorites because it just has really good action and it looks real. I've been catching bigger fish with this, but they both work. It's really about, just like in most situations, it's really about just getting a good looking lure in front of the fish is what we need to focus on. We don't have to match like the perfect size and color. Like we don't have to like think of every little variable, like a white jig head versus a red one versus a silver one. Just put a jig head on and get in front of some fish. And I guess don't overthink it. And because again, for many years, I totally overthought everything. And in reality, we just need to have a lure that resembles something they're going to eat, and then make it look like, give it the right motion, and they'll eat it as long as you have good motion.
And slow and low, that is the tempo.
Low and low is the tempo. But then so that's early in the morning, and then if it's like during the cold front, it's going to be overcast where it'll be just dark skies and it'll be as cold all day long. And that's where stay deep all day long.
So we're talking potholes, ledges, little channels.
Yeah, just find some deep zones, because that's going to have the warmest water. It'll be warmer than the shallow stuff. That's where they're going to be. But then if it's like 4 days after the front, a lot of times the high pressure systems from those cold fronts, that'll end up with blue skies and that sun shining bright all day long. The afternoon, it changes. And that can be some of my favorite fishing, because the water's going to be the clearest. When we start getting close to winter time, there's just less particles in the water. The water is going to be the clearest that it is throughout the season. And then after that sun shining, now that sun's rays is heating up the shallows faster than it heats up the deep stuff. So it'll eventually switch, where later in the afternoon, the shallows are the warmest and the deep stuff is now not as warm as the shallows. And what are the fish going to do, right? They want to be comfortable. So they're going to shift up in those shallows, and it's going to be a great time to sight fish. So a lot of it depends on the timing of the front. So if it's the day after, probably stay deep all day long. If it's a couple days after and that sun's shining, then that's time to get out there on those shallows. And that's when I put the weighted hook on, right, to cover the shallows. This is the ultimate for sight fishing.
Cool.
So it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So again, after cold for deer, remember when it was maybe a year after we started Salt Strong, and we used to host those online tournaments, and Chris Olt won a cooler.
Yeah.
And so it was a Yeti cooler, and he was actually in Seminole, which is only like an hour from where in Tampa where we were living at the time. And we're like, hey, that'd be cool. Let's go take him fishing and deliver the cooler, and it'll be fun. And so we set the trip like 2 weeks in advance. Literally the day before, it was conditions like today, where the temperature, we had like nice, good fall weather and no significant cold fronts. And then literally the day before we were fishing, the huge cold front came through, dropping the temperatures 20, 30 degrees. And to the point where at that time I wasn't as confident as with the trends. I knew it for Tampa, but we were traveling over to Chris over in Seminole. I'd never fished that area. I can't remember that area. I can't remember the name of that place. But it was the first time ever fishing it. So we were fishing foreign waters with a customer, and we were going to be filming. We told everybody we're going, and everybody knew we were filming. So like pressure was on, and like I was nervous.
And you didn't even have a beard back then, so confidence was really low.
I had a beard, so I didn't have that going. And anyhow, so just made the adjustments, and we fished docks, right? Because docks are the fallback, and it was docks with deep water on the ends, shallow water at the top, with some rocks and a variety of different forms of structure.
And one more thing, because this is going to be the last.
Yeah, wind protection.
Wind protection, yep.
and we caught a bunch of fish. And literally it was like the third or fourth cast, I caught like a mid upper slot redfish. And that, again, that was in a spot never been to before. Didn't know anything about it. All I knew is the recent trends that generally happen after a cold front. And I knew the type of areas that I've been seeing fish in like a week or two before the front. And so I just found a similar spot that was holding fish. And then I found the deep zone near that and fished it. And we had an awesome trip.
Yep.
So it's not so much about learning the water. A lot of people say, oh, you just have to get out more often and learn the water. No, you just need to learn how the fish react, and you can catch them.
And that decision was made before we dropped the boat in the water. That decision was made that evening on a new spot we never fished before, all using Google Maps. And in that little area, it was a cove that we knew was going to be wind protected just from the way the wind was going. But two, when you zoom in and kind of do the little 2D versus 3D, we saw that entire cove where the docks were, it was all 2-story homes that all had big oak trees. That's all wind protection. So we knew that was going to be the warmer area because the wind had not been sitting there blowing all that water near the docks and near the seawalls. And guess what? That's where we caught all the fish. It was literally right there on the end of the docks and close to the seawalls on a couple of areas that had some oysters near it. So yeah, that was a cool trip. That was fun with Chris.
Yeah, it was a great day because there was nobody at the boat ramp. Nobody. So we had the whole boat ramp to ourselves. I could have put it right flat in the middle of that that 2 or 3 lane boat ramp, and with your
pants down, and no one would have seen it. There's nobody there.
So there's no lines at the boat ramp. And so we used to cancel our trips. Remember, Joe, back in the day, if it was cold front coming, oh my gosh, lockjaw, let's just go play golf or do something else. And now it's like, oh, let's go fishing. Like it's really enjoyable. And when we were fishing that shoreline that Joe mentioned, that was all had those big high trees and the big homes. It was more comfortable for the fish. That's where the fish were. And it was way more comfortable for us. I mean, it was an enjoyable day. It was nice temperature. We fished until like 1 or 2.
Yeah. And it was in the video, because we videotaped the whole thing and it's on YouTube. We'll make sure Jake puts a link to it. But you can see at one angle, it looks like it's glass calm where we are. And then behind us, it's like white caps because it was, 20 to 20 mile per hour winds, cold. And we had our fleeces on. So it was very frigid, but it was flat calm in that one little cove, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, even like, because we did a quick little ceremony of handing over the cooler, and it was funny. But we did that at the boat ramp, which wasn't wind protected, and it was only a quarter mile from where we were fishing, and like we were having audio issues. Our shirts were blowing everywhere. I mean, the wind was cranking.
Yeah, good thing you didn't have long hair back then.
Yeah, it would have been flowing all over the place.
Oh man.
But yeah, long story short, don't be afraid of the cold fronts. The fish are still going to be around. They're still going to eat. It's not lockjaw. They're going to be tougher. I'm not saying that they're going to be jumping out of the water right in the boat. They're not hitting top water. But if you get a lure down in their face, and first of all, figure out where they are, get a lure near them, make it look good, and they're going to hit it. And you can have an absolute blast.
Yep. Cool. That was helpful. For you Insider members, stay tuned. Be in that community. We got a lot of cool stuff happening, a lot more on the water tips, especially here for winter as we enter this new period. This time that can be and has been intimidating to a lot of people, including us. But it really is one of the best times to fish. And all the pros say that too. They're almost like look forward to winter. And you got some people who they do shut up because all they do is go hunting and they go off to their hunting camp. So you have those few people, and you have everyone thinks got lockjaw, and it's cold for the families to go out. So I mean, it is really just the least pressured time to fish. And once you dial it in, which is what we do in the Insider Club, is literally get on a map and tell you where to go fish and then show you how to do it with on the water tips. You're going to have an absolute blast and just enjoyable for anyone you want to take out as well. It's really not that hard.
Yeah. And so we now have the tackle store as well. And we'll be adjusting the tackle store based on the season, based on what works. So it's not going to be, when you're looking at it now versus like next summer, there's going to be totally different lures, because again, it's just like it's rare that a single spot works all season long. The lures need to be adjusted to different sizes in depth coverage. And so we'll be keeping it's fishstrong.com for those who don't know. So we'll be keeping that up. You're going to see like the top lures, the top trending lures up there at the top of the page. Just so
the only one that doesn't go away is Slam Shady. It's the gift that keeps on giving year round, month after month, day after day.
Yeah, but we have different sizes for that reason, right? So Slam Shady 2.0, I haven't been using it at all for the past few months, but now these cold fronts are coming in. This is now becoming this at the very top of my tackle box.
Because you were using the bomber.
I was using the bomber. The bomber was crushing. I mean, over the fall, because you can cast it a mile. It's bigger, more thump, and man, it was. I didn't think I would enjoy anything more than the 2.0 because it was working, but the bomber was significantly better. Honestly, but it was noticeably better for that season. But again, that season's starting to pass, and we need to make adjustments accordingly.
Yep, and now we got that 3-inch, the Minnow Z from Z-Man and Slam Shady back too, which was super popular last December. That's when it sold out. And then COVID all of a sudden came in early March and we couldn't get it. So it's back in. If you're listening, we haven't, at least as we're recording this now. And please do go join us. And of course, as an insider, you do save 20% off everything at fishstrong.com, which is our tackle store. So come join us. It's only 27 cents a day. That's a joke. I know how much my wife spends on coffee a day, and it's a whole lot more than 27 cents. 27 cents a day, and it's guaranteed. We even put a 200% guarantee for new people coming in.
Yeah. So, and for those who don't have the calculator, it's just $97 a year. Whoa. And so it covers everything for a full year. It's 20% off all the tackle, right? And so you can buy the rods, reels, lines, lures, everything you need from it. So most people literally pay for the club just from buying the tackle, right? Yep. So you have to get a couple rods or a couple reels, like that alone is going to pay for the entire membership, and then everything else is bonus.
And sunglasses now too. We had people save hundreds just on their new Smith glasses this year. So
even cast nets, right? I mean, you name it. We're gonna keep growing it. It'll only grow from here, and we have some cool things coming. We have a shrimp lure coming out that's amazing. Testing out some chum. I mean, it's gonna be big.
Yeah, buddy. Cool, guys. We appreciate everything. Make sure to go subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to us on YouTube, and join us in the Insider Club. That's really where all the magic happens. That's where we spend the majority of our time while we're not, creating some of the podcast and some of this other content. It's all about the Insider Club. 18,000 plus members as I'm recording. Heck, we might end up here at the year 19.5. I mean, it's getting really close to 20,000 just from all the people coming in here this last month. So we really appreciate you. It's been really cool to see the online community grow, kind of shifting a lot of our time. We have that Facebook group. A lot of you hopefully are members of. It's free, called the Salt Strong Fishing Tribe. Really our whole team now, all of our fishing coaches are spending all the time in the community now because it's so much more active. I mean, it used to be kind of like, oh man, like Facebook's so much more active with all of our members, but now it's flip-flop. I don't want to say it's every minute, but it feels like it. Every time I refresh, there's new reports and new questions and new people sharing their own tips, from Texas to New Jersey, which has been really, really cool. So that's all at community.saltstrong.com, community.saltstrong.com. You can only get there if you're an active Insider member.
And it's all regionalized too, which is like now, like I hate to say it, but I haven't been in the Facebook group in a couple of months at least. Because the community, it's more helpful information, more details. A lot of people post the spots so you can see on the map like where the different spots are trending, and it's just a whole nother level. It's like a Facebook group kind of in a forum, kind of merged and had a kid, because it's like a Facebook group, but it's very organized and it's all regionalized, and so you can look at trends, like year over year on months. You can even filter by species, by region. Like it's awesome, and it's only getting better as Nick makes it even more awesome.
Oh yes, well I think you officially just got scratched off Mark Zuckerberg's list of people he's sending Christmas cards to. So you've been in there in 2 months, so you missed out on that, but you're getting more fun and engagement in the Insider Club. So sorry, Zuck. All right, guys, we appreciate you. Go to saltstrong.com, learn more about the club. If you're an Insider member, go in the community. We're starting to post everything in there, new discounts, new products, new proprietary products. It's going to be another big thing is coming out with some lures and some, I'll just say other accessories that you can only get as a member, and you still get the 20% off. So That's all at saltstrong.com and then fishstrong.com. Otherwise, we are out. Peace. Hope to see you out on the water. If you see the Salt Strong boat, come up and say hello. Unless we are you can tell we're in a honey hole and or filming. That's probably the only too much reasons. Or fighting a big fish. Don't try to cut us off. But even if you do, we'll still give you some decals. Because if
we record, that'll be fun.
That would be pretty funny. Yeah, come up there and do a funny dance.
Yeah, just make sure it's our boat. It's the Pathfinder, not Deeks.
No, definitely with Deeks too.
All right, Deeks is on.
Yeah, any Salt Strong boat, go up and say hi and do something funny.
Yeah, we need to make sure Deeks has a big supply of decals or lures or both.
Cool. All right, guys, we appreciate you. We out. Peace.
See ya.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days of old. You'll find us on the water if there was a way. It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing in our soul.